Hello everybody and welcome to Walker Time. Today we are taking a look at the Laco Paderborn. But before we get into that, let's take a look at a real quick wrist check. We've got the Seagull 1963 here. I figured since we are reviewing a pilot's watch, it's only right that I too wear a pilot's watch. So to start off, let's explain what this watch is. This watch is the Laco Paderborn. It is a Flieger style watch from Laco. Laco, of course, being a watch brand that made watches for the German military in German Air Force, I should say, in World War II. These come in both the A and B dials. Now the B dial was used more for bombers than average pilots or navigators. Now this one is the B dial, and I will get into why there's the A and the B dial and why they're separate later on when I talk more about the dial. Now, looking at this watch, it is probably the best tool watch I have ever worn and ever had the pleasure of wearing. It's probably one of my favorite watches in general to wear, aside from my Monster my Seiko Monster. That one probably takes the cake for my favorite watch that I own. But this is a very close second. And we'll get into some of the reasons why in a bit. But for now, let's put this down and take a look at the box. Now the box, it comes in this very nice cardboard box, right? And when you open it, you have this leather case with the Laco logo on it, right? This very nice leather case. You open it up. You have your warranty card and all your papers in here. And of course, you have the bit down here where the watch would sit when you get it in. As far as the box goes, they really outdid themselves. They didn't have to send this leather case in, but it just gives a little flair, I guess, to the box. I think it's a really nice box that it comes in. Now, for the strap that it comes on a really nice gray nylon strap. It's a two-piece rather than like a Zulu or a NATO. It's a nice strap, but I prefer a NATO on it. I think a NATO just fits the aesthetic of better for what it's trying to be, or less what it's trying to be, more what it is. So yeah, I'm not sure I'll spend much time with that original strap on it, just because I love the way it wears with the NATO. For the sizes of this watch, the height is 13 millimeters, the case diameter is 42, and the lug to lug is 50. So it's got fairly standard sizes. The only difference is this watch wears extremely large. Now, that's not a problem for me personally, looking at the fact that it's a flight watch, so they're meant to be larger. And also, I have 7-inch wrists, so something like this honestly wears really nicely on my wrist. Now, if you don't like bigger watches and you have a smaller wrist, like 6.5 or something like that, this might not be the watch for you. The reason it wears so large is because of there's no bezel. It's all dial. This watch is all dial, and the lugs that just jut out make it wear extremely large as well, because they're not curved. It wears extremely flat on the wrist as well. So if you're not a big fan of that feeling, it's again probably not the watch for you. Now the Paderborn here is a B dial, and it's got this beautiful blue, like this matte sunburst blue. Now that right there is the only difference between this one and the other Paderborns. There's no different in the movement or the crystal. It's just the dial. And as I said before, this one's the B dial, which is used by the bombers. Now this was because for the bombers, they needed to know what the minute was over the hour compared to regular pilots who needed hour over minute. because the bombers, they didn't care what hour it was. They just need to know that when their watch hits 45, that's when they drop their bombs, you know, so that they can synchronize their bombing. And I didn't really like the B dial when I first put this on, but it grew on me. This is, you know, this is easily my most legible watch in my collection. That's pretty much solely because of the B dial. I mean, you look at that, that's an easy watch to read. Now, as for the lume, it's got Super Luminova C3 on it, and it's got more lume than you'll know what to do with. This lume is so bright, and there's so much of it that even at midnight, you wake up at midnight, you have this watch on, you take a look at it, you're gonna be able to read the time. It's absolutely insane. It's probably got the best lume out of any watch that I own. As far as tool watches go, there's no watch that I'd trust to get the job done more than this, with that sapphire crystal, and because yeah, it's got a slightly domed sapphire crystal, as well as the movement in there is an ETA 2824. Now this is an extremely robust and accurate movement. It's also seen in a lot of, it's been used in a lot of watches. It's a very tried and true movement. We see it in the likes of we see it from watches like the Steinhardt homage watches all the way up to like the Tudor Black Bay. So it's got quite a range, and to be trusted in watches with the reputation of the Tudor Black Bay, I think that just kind of speaks for itself as far as the quality of this movement. Now, when I put mine on the time grapher, it was gaining about 5 seconds a day. And so that's a pretty solid movement. That's a pretty solid watch. Now, the price point of this watch is about $1,200, brand new on Laco's website, and I believe if you buy it on the used market, you can get them for about $1,000. And in my opinion, that's a really great price. You're getting a lot of watch at that point. This is a watch that, in all honesty, could survive a war, and that was kind of the point of when they made the original Flieger watches, was, you know, for a war. Now, let's get on to the pros and cons, because there are a few pros and a few cons that I have listed out here. One of the pros is the history of the brand. Laco was one of the brands that made the original Flieger watches in World War II. So the Laco brand has a lot of history in it, as far as that goes. And to this day, like with this as an example, they're still making their Flieger watches with, you know, that are just as good as the ones they made back then, just with shinier specs, you know, an upgraded crystal, an upgraded movement, and, you know, things to that extent. Now, another pro, I already kind of touched on this, is this watch is solely a tool watch. They were trying to do nothing but make just a pure tool watch, and they succeeded. Well, like I said, there's no watch that I trust more than this watch to get the job done. And my third pro is that from the dial to the lugs to the crown, everything on this watch is supposed to be really historically accurate to the original Fliegers. Like, it's even got the historically accurate markings on the back of the watch there. Yeah. The final pro I have written down here is that it feels really good on the wrist. It's got a good heft to it. It wears really well. Everything about it is perfect just to be a tool watch. There's nothing that hinders its ability to do its job, and I think that is just really cool. As far as cons go, for starters, it's a really large watch. Like I said before, it wears fine on my 7-inch wrists, but anything smaller, it's probably going to wear very large, a lot larger than you'd probably want to. Now, if you're all right with that, because it's a flight watch, it's supposed to be a bit big, you know, by all means, go for it. It's just a warning. If you don't like bigger watches, might not be the watch for you. Next, we have the crown. Now for me, because I'm left-handed, I wear my watches on my right wrist. I don't really have a problem with this, but if you wear the watch too far down, you're definitely going to be having that crown dig into your skin there. So you'll have to wear the watch a little higher up on your wrist to get rid of that. And I know there are some people who don't like wearing the watches above the bone here, right here. But if you're wearing this watch, you'll probably want to wear it higher on your wrist. So that concludes the review of the Laco Paderborn. If you are looking for a tool watch that'll do it all and will last you for years and years to come, this is the watch that I would recommend you buy. So anyway, thank you guys all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.